All right, thank you for coming. The end of week one. I'm very interested to hear your questions. I think we had a lot of chance to talk about the state of the state. I did review the budget proposals since then, and I'm very concerned about some of the proposals that were made there, and I feel like we're seeing the budget hearings this week. I think we are going to have some real challenges around the budget and making sure we're covering the basic services that the people need in this state. Childcare, I'm deeply concerned about that, and the challenges around medical care and health care. And it sounds like those are going to be discussion and debate, but we want to always be a voice for access, making sure people have access to health care. Of course, we started our first committee meetings this week, and we're up and running. Bill's already getting heard. So what questions do you have?
There was a SNAP presser yesterday with the state auditor. Some SNAP bills heard, I know, over in the State House, but what did you make of the governor's comments on SNAP and some of the things that we're seeing dealing with SNAP going through this?
We check eligibility on SNAP a lot. Absolutely, we should always improve our accuracy, and I'm very glad that we're improving those systems. It sounds like we have ongoing tech problems, and that's really an executive branch decision to make sure we have those technology needs in place. I'm very concerned about these efforts to report people to ICE around applying for benefits. We're talking about children. We need to make sure children can access the services they need. We don't need state employees having to analyze someone's immigration papers to make sure they can access food benefits if they're a citizen.
You had two or three insurance bills this morning going through committee. With all of the stuff going on with State Farm, how do those, incorporate all of that?
Yeah, unfortunately, two of the three were laid over. The chairman decided to lay those over, and those were really the ones that would, I believe, give us a lot more authority in the Insurance Commission to oversee rates and to really hold corporations in check. So I'm disappointed. I'm going to be advocating for those bills on an ongoing basis. The only one that was heard was about credit scores. Oklahomans are paying more than 100% more for their home insurance if they have a bad credit score in this state. And I don't mean really bad. I'm just mildly bad credit score. And so we really are charging a penalty to low-income folks, even if they don't actually have higher weather risks or higher claim risks. And they're conflating those two things, credit risk with a risk on the insurance side. And I don't see the data backing up for that. So I'm really pleased that bill did go through committee.
Jumping back to SNAP
really
quick. DHS Director Cartmell says that there's a plan to lower the error rates. They seem pretty confident on the agency side. Senator Racino, the Senate Chair of the Appropriations for Human Services, says we need more time. Where do you stand? Where does your caucus stand on what needs to be done to meet the federal mandates?
I think if the agency has a real plan, great. I haven't gotten to see it yet, and I do need to follow up on that. I think a lot of times we are pretty optimistic in those timelines, especially when it's technology driven. So I hope it's realistic, because we don't want to be bumping people off benefits when they are eligible and they should be receiving it. We saw in November with the federal shutdown how even small amounts of benefits being cut off were really crippling to people in their home budgets. And so we've got to make sure that system is not unnecessarily bumping people out, which is my concern on the Medicaid side as well. When you're talking about AI making denials, how much is it costing for people to have to follow up and appeal those things if they truly are eligible and are just not getting through a system?
The Healthcare Authority asking for $500 million more. Yesterday, the director that STIP put in said that it's not a request, it's a requirement, that they can't basically survive without $500 million. STIT, in the Oklahoman, is what I read, is saying that they're going to have to deal with a lot less. What's your reaction to all this? They oversee the Medicaid program,
I hope we can get a better sense of the finances, because this is not the message we heard from the previous administration, and but we have had increased access and increased costs, and so we got to be realistic. But when you talk about Medicaid expansion and the governor trying to imply that getting rid of Medicaid expansion, which would take a state question, is going to save us a bunch of money, we're only paying 10% of that care for people. So truly, federal government providing 90%, we're providing 10%. I don't see how that's a positive financial equation for us to cut back that care.
Well,
we're not going to balance the books on that.
He would like for voters to be able to take that out of the Constitution, though, and allow for some changes to be made statutorily, though, if that ratio changes. Would you be in favor of that?
I think the people of Oklahoma want access to health care for everyone in our state that needs it. They specifically added working Oklahomans to that Medicaid list, and I think there's a reason for that. We have barely gotten started with getting people access to that care and the kind of cost savings we can have when we improve people's health preventatively. We're only a couple years in, and we've made radical changes to the program several times since then. So I would like to see us stay the course and do a better job with what we have. I don't think the people are going to support cutting back access to health care for people. They know that their rural hospitals are on the brink of closure.
Wasn't the transition to managed care supposed to manage some of those costs?
This is something I find very confusing, and I haven't gotten a follow-up, which is I do know that when we were sold managed care, primarily by the governor, there was a lot of claims of savings, and we're not there. I mean, they've only been implemented for a couple of years now. They're telling us some very good data, show us how we're going to turn a corner and when, but we can't be knee-jerk and be yanking away health insurance from folks when we've barely even gotten started with the preventative care.
Can I ask about the social?
So as far as the OHCA goes, I mean, to your earlier point, the state only pays for $5.2 million of that for the Medicaid expansion, and the feds pay for the other 90%. There was a lot of talk about having to cut programs, and the Director Bullard said that the previous administration was relying on reserves. Is that something that you want to see, this continued added money for OHCA?
I mean, I think we've got to fund it appropriately. We have funded things through rebates from pharmaceutical companies, which actually could be undermining us on costs. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to look at savings other than cutting off services.
I want to ask about the social studies standards. I wanted to
Yeah.
know what you thought this summer when the state Supreme Court overturned them, and why you thought they got through the legislature despite being unconstitutional.
Yeah, so, we opposed the social studies standards going through. We tried to get the legislature to reject those standards when we had the chance. Unfortunately, they had to go through the very confusing process of it going through the Supreme Court. I'm very glad the Supreme Court upheld that the process wasn't right. And then it's gone back to the educators. I've spoken with educators from my district who were on that committee and spent all year preparing those standards to be positive. And so they very much were asking they still want updates. So I've got to check back with them and see what they're thinking about the current standards. I'm glad to see it's out for public review. I think it's very positive that the state school board sent it back for public comment. And now I'm just hoping that that's something that's in the public record so we can all see what those concerns are.
Were you surprised that the Supreme Court overturned them?
No. I mean, we knew that there were problems with the system that they used. I'm just disappointed the legislature didn't take the power we could have taken back from Ryan Walters.
Have you looked at them? Do you like them?
No, I haven't looked yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't have an opinion on
No,
them?
I'll check in with educators that I know are working on it.
I have a question. So, a lot of people are asking, this sounds dramatic, how are we going to pay for all this, right? Federally, with the big, beautiful bill, is going to cost us a lot. Governor Stitt wants flat budgets for another year. Do you think that's even possible, flat budgets? And, I mean, the
Well, I
pressure
think
federally?
we've seen artificial restraints on budgets for years while inflation grows. And I don't think we've yet invested what we need to in prevention that's going to actually reduce our costs. So interestingly, he talked about the reduction in incarceration. So our prison population shrunk. A lot of that is because of medical marijuana and no longer charging people with that level of crimes, right? So we have to look at what those true prevention measures are that are saving our state money, that are smart for policy. So no, I don't think flat budgets are realistic because we're talking about increased population, we're talking about a lot of inflation, and we still have to provide public safety. We have to make sure that's in place, and we're hearing crisis across the board. The federal changes are very dramatic, and if we make those same kind of constraints at the state level, we're going to see a system breaking down. We're seeing that in childcare, we're seeing that with our hospitals, and the vulnerabilities are huge.
What do you think about his proposal to cap at 3% any annual increase in the state budget?
We should never make artificial numbers. This is kind of like the triggers that they've passed in the past. We have to let future legislatures make decisions that make sense. And the people of Oklahoma can vote for them, they can advocate around them. Those numbers are not magic. We're talking about inflation. There's no reason that 3% makes sense.
I just wanted to pivot to education. The governor announced 2 executive orders this morning to limit tenure and also to put in regular check-ins with professors to require them to meet a certain number of research dollars they're bringing in or teach a certain number of classes. Obviously, the regents would have to approve this, which he put in, but my question to you is, this seems like this is a good business strategy, which we know he came in and he's a businessman, but do you think that this will translate well to academia, and do you support these measures?
Yeah, I hadn't seen those orders, so clearly I'll have to review them. I mean, I have concerns when there's an implied limit on academic freedom. You know, we want the classroom to be somewhere where they can truly teach and have conversations that might be hard conversations. And I think a lot of the scrutiny of faculty has been driven by political points that they're trying to score. And so, I mean, I would be concerned that that is what they're trying to do. Meanwhile, we need more people going to higher ed. Why are we undermining trust in higher ed? We know it is one of the biggest economic drivers we have is to invest in higher education, give people those opportunities. So I'm worried that we're just undermining trust in the system.
Do you have any comments on the ongoing infighting on the majority side in your guys' chamber? Do you foresee that bleeding over in the floor?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of personal issues coming up this week. We've seen a lot, of course, in the press between different members. I'll just say, you know, we just keep focusing on the people, solving actual problems. We're trying not to get sucked into those personal debates. You know, yesterday on the floor, we were really focused on the policy and does this law change make sense? And we, you know, our caucus split on that vote, and that's because we have different districts and we have different convictions about that. So I'm disappointed when those personality-driven policy decisions get made. So I hope we can stay focused on solving real problems.
Back to education, the other executive order issued this morning was about having the state regents shift to a performance-based funding plan, you know, having universities evaluated for workforce outcomes and research, and they'll get more or less dollars based upon that. Can you speak to what your opinion is?
I mean, I have deep concerns when we start to funnel education into being a certification program. We know that higher ed matters because it helps with critical thinking, curiosity, innovation. And when you're talking about interdisciplinary degrees, you're talking about degrees that might not immediately scream career path. That's still really important for our future. And so I'm really worried when we start to put things down into how much someone's going to earn when they graduate, when we know higher ed's important for a lot more reasons than that.
Wanted to get your thoughts. You touched on the SNAP bill yesterday relating to immigration. There's a few different immigration bills that we're seeing. One in the Senate that's been filed would prevent NGOs from being able to help these people. Just what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, Senate Bill 1554 is the bill I've heard the most from the community and from my constituents. That's a bill that would limit nonprofits being able to serve people if they're not sure of their immigration status. I'm deeply concerned that we're now pushing this federal decision making about someone's immigration status down on nonprofits that might be serving someone who's in crisis. They might be feeding a hungry child. We cannot ask nonprofits to do that. We are providing a tax benefit for nonprofits, but otherwise they are doing the work. And so we should not be asking them to be immigration agents. I think it's dangerous.
Pivoting really quick to water infrastructure. The Senate Energy Committee this morning heard a few bills related to water infrastructure. One of the ones that stood out to me was Senator Hall's bill to essentially try out the ask for appropriations from the Water Resources Board. Just your thoughts on this $24 billion emergency by 2030 that keeps getting thrown around.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Oklahoma communities have some real challenges around water and water access and upgrading our water systems. I was shocked to learn this summer how few local communities have general obligation bonds. I think this is a real challenge of funding at the local level, making sure our cities have the money they need to operate systems and to upgrade systems. And so it's a huge need across the state, but we also have to make sure local communities are able to plan and maintain their own equipment as well. I've had great conversations with Senator Hall. We've talked a lot about water and sewer infrastructure when it comes to housing. That's one of the biggest challenges for developing affordable housing is having the right infrastructure in place. And so he said he's going to convene us, all of us who have an interest in water bills this year, to try to have a more broad conversation. So I'm looking forward to that because I think we have to really make strides as a community because otherwise we're going to end up with Flint situations.
Would you speak a little bit to the property tax conversation and what you and the caucus at large would like to see out of that?
Yeah, I'm concerned as folks are presenting a zero-based property tax or huge cuts in property taxes. That's going to undermine public safety. It's going to undermine our local schools. It's a primary driver and a very reliable driver of local development. I'm deeply concerned that now there's going to be a compromise that's going to include that. I'm already hearing people compromising to that position when it's an unreasonable position. Do the people of Oklahoma still want public safety? Do they still want bridges and roads outside the city? Do they want public schools and public health? I believe they do. And so I think we should not be compromising to that position.
Would you be in favor of some more targeted, reasonable support?
Very limited. I think we have a property tax relief for very low income folks. We could increase that limit. I think it's at $20,000 right now, maybe, or $25,000. We could increase that slightly, and I think that would be fair. We have a senior freeze that's already in effect. I feel like perhaps we need to promote that more, that already exists, you know. So.
We had protesters here on Monday protesting against some immigration policies and ICE. There's a walkout going on right now at Mustang High School. Same issue there. I guess just when it's trickling down all the way to high school kids being outspoken about this, what do you see that needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real challenge over policing communities. People who are black and brown feeling unsafe driving is a real problem. I'm hearing from families that are scared to drive their kids to school as citizens, and they're still nervous about it because very much people are being profiled. I think that's what we're seeing in kids, is that they're concerned for their friends, they're concerned for their families. And so I hope we can find a reasonable level. As a state legislator, I'm very much focused on state resources. So the questions we're asking are around the detention facilities that the state is now basically subleasing for corrections. I'm deeply concerned about how we're using highway patrol to enforce immigration law, and my concerns about where that state money is going. So I feel like those are the questions that I'm really focused on, but I'm hearing from a lot of folks who are worried about excessive force and how that undermines law enforcement overall when there is excessive force, and how people are being profiled.
In other states, tribal communities have mentioned that they're being policed by ICE as well. Have you heard that from tribal communities?
I mean, we saw tribal leaders announcing that folks should carry their documentation. That's deeply troubling. That's very un-American that we would be expecting people to have their papers on hand. And I think that people are making assumptions. And that's the kind of policing we moved away from. We moved into a due process and a mindset that we actually are going to de-escalate situations. And I feel like this current situation with ICE is really undermining all the gains we've made for law enforcement.
Senate Bill 743 is heading to the governor's desk. It's about protesters in church. Give me your thoughts on, the discussion that was had on the Senate floor yesterday, and just, what you hope to see from this bill, further discussions, things like that.
Yeah, so that bill, our caucus split on it. We do not have a caucus position on it. My big concern is creating new felonies. I think we do that a lot without actually dealing with the root causes and root issues. I'm concerned about some of the ambiguous definitions in there about faith communities and about what disruption or how it would be implemented, who would be targeted with it. I think we can all agree we want folks to have a safe space to worship, and that we need to make sure that happens. I'm just not sure that was the way to take it. It's interesting that was the first bill to go through this year, and I'm not sure what to make of that.
The governor in the state of the state calling for the end of the OSSAA, Senator Murdoch filing legislation earlier this week. Walk me through what's the caucus's position on that, and what discussions do you hope to have to, if there's a problem, solve the problem with the OSSAA, or prevent this Oklahoma Athletics Commission from being formed?
Yeah, so when it comes to high school athletics and our young people's athletics, we don't have a caucus position at this point. I think we'll continue to look at the bills that have come up and see what accountability is needed. I've heard deep concerns about our transfer rules and how we are overemphasizing kids pursuing athletic opportunities over academic opportunities. And so some concerns, certainly in my district, where kids are getting cherry-picked out of the district because they don't have to wait, they can go play somewhere else. And so I'm concerned for the community and for the well-being of our schools if kids are moving around schools every year. I'd like to see what the academic outcomes are. If a student changes schools every year, how does that affect their academics? I have a student who is a first-time swimmer taking part in regionals this weekend, so I'm going to be getting my up-close OSSA experience. I hope she makes state.